Hello again. We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr. We are here to do SEC basketball power rankings. It's Monday, January the 29th, almost to February. This is when it starts getting really serious in February.
Oh, yeah.
And we're very serious about our power rankings. Not always. Serious enough to put in the work, to give you good opinions, and I think we'll have fun with this today. Reminder that the channel in this video brought to you by BetOnline. It's Super Bowl time. The road through Vegas has gone through San Francisco and Baltimore. BetOnline is your number one source for playoff odds, stats, trends, and lines with everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props. Head to BetOnline today. Stay updated on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
The Super Bowl is about to go through somewhere else other than Baltimore, but nonetheless.
Yes. And I thought it was going to go through Detroit in a different kind of way, but then the football gods had other ideas. But we're here to talk basketball, and we're here to start at the bottom, as we always do, and this team has been at the bottom for a while. Blake, what has happened to Vanderbilt basketball? Winless in the league, lost 10 of 11, coach got booed, gym got taken over by 70 to 80% visiting fans. What alternate universe are we living in these days?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the Tennessee fans taking over was not that surprising, but I know what you're saying. It's they're 5-14, 0-6 in league play. They go to Auburn on Wednesday. Best chance of the win is going to come Saturday at home against Missouri, and other than that, I don't have a lot to add. They're not getting it done. That's all I can say about it. So,
yeah, there's not too much to add. I do think that this Saturday is probably the best opportunity they're going to have at a win all conference season. What it's looking like, depending on if they pull another thing down the stretch, but I don't think they will. Just looking real quick at their numbers, Kamateros hasn't hit a three in 4 weeks, and he was kind of their lone front court scoring option there for a little while, and he's kind of in a little bit of a slump, so that's definitely affecting the offense. I like how they're starting Rivera Torres, though. They're building on their youth for the future, but for this season, not much to work with.
Number 13, Arkansas. Blake, have we checked on the whereabouts of the Must Bus?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just cruising along and not really getting off on the right exit or something. I don't know, but it
were the corn nuts and the zero bars pilfered?
Maybe that may be the reasoning here. Long-time viewers of the channel will know how important those two are to this team's success. But yeah, I mean, look, like we said, that was an opportunity on Saturday, game day, Kentucky, everything, and like you just didn't have the same, the enthusiasm. It just was not there in terms of, because again, it's just the nature of where the program's at right now, or not the program. I don't think the program is necessarily in a bad spot. I think it's just the season, right? I think we got to be careful. We talked about this in the reaction video. Yeah. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. Eric Musselman's not getting fired. So let's just everyone slow down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas fans know their play on the court speaks for itself right now, and it's not been good. And man, now you got 2 games that going into the season look very winnable on the road coming up this week at Missouri and at LSU, and instead they could be 2 games that send you even further down. So yeah.
Yeah, and we got to remember also they didn't have Brazil, and obviously there's no more Davis anymore. So when you're looking at a ranking in terms of a power ranking, did they look their most connected in the best effort on Saturday? I would say yeah, but also now, what's this roster look like? Who's going to play? Is Brazil? Muss said that Brazil's not close. He said he didn't touch the practice court this week. So how long is he going to be out? That's got to impact some stuff. So just a lot of question marks still, and it's not good to have a lot of question marks entering February. So I don't know. I'm still at a loss.
Wrapping up the tier of abject misery, number 12, Missouri. Like Arkansas, I think the program is in great shape. This year's team just is not due to injuries. We talked about that on the reaction video. This team continues to play hard. It's kind of going as far as Sean East and Tamar Bates can carry it. And other than that, Blake, I don't have much to add here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just rooting for my client to avoid the zero in the win column. But again, we talk about opportunity. Unfortunately, Missouri and Vandy both in the same spot in terms of opportunity. It feels like the best chance to get a win on the schedule for either, although Missouri does host Arkansas on Wednesday. Like I said, Missouri's been close in some of these games. They just don't have that next gear the way they did last year, and they are missing two key players, which I will continue to repeat just to remind anyone that they may not be a top 5 team in the SEC, but I think they'd be a little bit better right now if they had two key members of the rotation. But they don't, and they are struggling to find offense, and that's kind of where they are right now.
Yeah, maybe a Caleb Grill return could change things. I've heard some whispers that he might be close to a return, but yeah, I think Blake kind of nailed it. Got a few opportunities here, and honestly, I don't mind the rest of their schedule. They catch some good teams at home. They've got A&M, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Auburn, all at home. So they do have a few opportunities here, but it's got to happen now. You know what I mean? And I don't know when Grill's coming back. Tanji's not coming back. So Easton Bates needs some help. You know, it's kind of been the story we've been saying all year.
Next up, what I call the NIT tier. And I think this team is in a tier by itself here. It's LSU at 11. LSU's done some good stuff. It competes every night. I just don't think it's quite good enough to get to the NCAA's net ranking, kind of in that NIT territory. Max, I think you agree with me on this one about LSU.
Yeah, this is and we said it, I think Blake said it last preview, that this is a decent team. They've got a lot of pieces. Anytime that you're featuring Jordan Wright, I'm gonna like it. And they do play a good defense. Besides, see, this is the funny thing. Mike White, after they played Georgia on Wednesday, said that LSU has one of the best defenses in the conference, and then Alabama puts up 109 on them. So it's like, my goodness. But yeah, I think they're not in the tier of misery, but they're also not up out of this NIT tier. They're kind of in their own thing, where when you play at LSU, it's gonna be tough to beat them there. But when you catch them at home, you're probably going to be favored by a few possessions to win. Tricky team that I like. I think they can really shoot. But man, Alabama just really put a beat down on them.
LSU's schedule is not that bad the rest of the way. That's the only thing I would add here, is that they, to me, have one of the more favorable schedules left of anybody. Now you're gonna look up here in a week and say, wait a second, they got to go to Alabama, or excuse me, they got to go to Tennessee. They host Alabama. Got to go to Florida. Got to go to South Carolina. But if you look beyond that, 4 of their last 6 are at home. They get Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, Missouri all at home. Their 2 road games in there are Vanderbilt and Arkansas. So I don't think they're going to, like I said, it's going to be hard to make the tournament. But I'm just saying there is a chance that if they were to put together some wins, they could be one of those teams that is at least making something interesting heading into the SEC tournament. It's going to be a tough task, but let's see how they do over these next couple of weeks with a couple of 3 of these road games, which are going to be tough. But they steal one of those, maybe keep an eye on LSU.
Chris and I we were talking yesterday about the SEC and just how many teams we think they might get into the tournament. And we agreed that it was probably going to be 8, with that 9th team kind of flirting right outside the bubble. I think LSU has a good chance of being that 9th or 10th team that's, right there, that maybe can win a game or 2 in the SEC tournament and might be in. Keep an eye on LSU.
Okay, we'll dream on that a little bit. LSU 94 in the net. I think it's going to have to climb a good 25 spots just to get into the discussion. Maybe 20 if you want to be very loose. I don't think a team, was it NC State was 74 in the net and made it? I might be off a couple of spots, but that would seem to be sort of where the ceiling is set at that. LSU not there yet. But, hey, if LSU were able to make a run, get that net up into the 60s, it is banked wins at A&M, Wake on a neutral floor, and Ole Miss, 3 teams that you could argue would be in the tournament today if it were picked. So it has done some things. It's just got to put itself in a position to get there if it can do more things. So,
yeah.
Anyway, next up, what I think these next 4 teams are the NCAA bubble tier right now. Now, look, this is not the order I would put these teams in. I don't think this is the order that any of us would put these teams in if we're coming to say this team is closest to the bubble and this team is furthest. In fact, I would argue that the team we're about to bring up next is the team that would be closest to being in. In fact, probably would be in today based on its resume, and that is Texas A&M. But this is not just based on NCAA tournament resumes. It is based on watching teams, and we have said it nonstop. The shooting problems are there. It's just a very limited offensive team. But A&M has banked a lot of good wins, and I'll take Gary Parrish's word on it. A&M, as of a couple of days ago, I think had the most quad 1 wins of any team in the SEC. That's why I say I think this team would probably be in today. It's beaten Iowa State, Kentucky, won at Ohio State, and SMU. That's a long-winded way of saying A&M has got a resume, but we have some questions about the play on the court and how it all comes together, Blake.
How did A&M get to 10 in our rankings?
They keep losing. That's how.
Shooting 29% in games this week. That's one way.
Shooting 25%.
They won one of them.
They won and they shot 29%. They shot 39% in the other, which they lost.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious how they got to 10 because we're going to get some blowback for this one. I'm just curious how they got to 10. I don't know. I'm just asking the question out loud. They lost by 3 at home to Ole Miss. They lost a buzzer beater at Arkansas. They beat Kentucky. They won at LSU. They beat Missouri, even if it wasn't pretty. I think we got this one wrong. That's all I'm going to say. But we'll see. We'll see if, because you're right. Somehow they would be in the NCAA tournament as of today. And, I guess it's just because of the wins they banked with the Iowa State win, the Kentucky win, and all that. They don't have any. They do have a couple interesting losses, but hey, if we're ranking them by 3-point shooting, this team's at the bottom. So maybe we weighed our 3-point percentages a little too high on this one.
I think it's just because of the eye test and just the offense is so tough to watch sometimes. They go through these stretches of miss. I mean, I think it's what did they just shoot against Ole Miss? They shot 6 of 20.
39%.
Yeah, and the 2-point percentage efficiency that you've been talking about a lot, Chris, is down also. Like if they were just feasting inside and they just weren't a good 3-point shooting team, it'd be one thing, but they're not shooting good anywhere. And they kind of just rely on a Wade Taylor masterpiece every time. That's pretty, or in the Kentucky game, a Tyrese Radford masterpiece. It's like you got to have someone do something crazy for this team to win. And it's tough on the eyes sometimes to watch this offense. That's why I ranked them pretty low, kind of because I picked them and Ole Miss beat them. So I want my revenge.
I mean, we're not petty at all when it comes to
No,
never.
Number 9, the Georgia Bulldogs. I think this team is growing on all 3 of us. I love what Mike White is doing. Georgia is 4-3 in the league. It is 14-6 overall. I don't know that Georgia has gotten much run. I mean, I say that. I don't listen to all the NCAA tournament podcasts or read all the things. But, I mean, Georgia 80 in the net. Again, not good enough to get in at the moment. Wins over Wake Forest. I think half the SEC beat Wake Forest in the out-of-conference portion. Win over South Carolina. Hey, if Georgia had been able to topple Florida in overtime, I don't know if we'd have a discussion yet, but we'd be getting closer. But we love the way this team is playing, Max. It is a team with parts. RJ Melendez gave Georgia the game of its life. And look, these guys will give you an interesting game. Any given night, they may fall behind. They will make it close. They keep scrapping and fighting. Ultimately, I don't think they're quite good enough to get to the NCAA tournament, but Mike White has put this team in the discussion to where it is going to be something to watch if it keeps playing the way it has.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the team's losses here in conference play, and they're against Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida. I mean, you can argue that they haven't really lost a game that they shouldn't have. They took care of Missouri and Arkansas. They went to South Carolina and won, which is now looking even more impressive. And then taking care of LSU at home in a tight game. So they've kind of done their job. And quietly, Russell Chaywas had back-to-back double-doubles this past week. So they've got big men playing well. Demery fouled out early against Florida, and thanks to a Melendez career high, they were able to come back in that one. But I thought Demery going out early was a big reason why they fell back behind by so much. But yeah, I like this team. They fight, they scrap. Should have beat Tennessee. Came back against Kentucky. I know we said that was garbage time, but coming back against Florida, Chris, you like to say Georgia can't kill them, and that's kind of holding true. They get a home game against Alabama, and KenPom only has it as a 6-7 point game. So I like this team. They fight. They've got good pieces, and Mike White's got the defense playing pretty well.
Yep, biggest week of the season for Georgia with the 2 home games against Alabama and South Carolina. 2 big opportunities, and if they could somehow get both of those, that's a huge step in the right direction. And I'll just say, everybody's got their different criteria for power rankings. Some may lean more on NCAA tournament projections and say you have to rank teams based on where they're. That's just not how I do it either. And so I don't just buy into looking at the net or looking at just projections for the tournament. These are power rankings. We all are going to have different philosophies and biases when it comes to how we want to rank teams. And so I would just add that in because I know, you do sometimes look at these and think they should just follow the bracketology to a T, and it's just not how it works. Part of it for me is who do I trust more on a neutral court as of us doing these rankings? And yeah, so I mean, I think Georgia's been a team that continually seems to kind of move up, and just because of how they're playing, and they've been right there in a lot of games, minus the Kentucky game where they're getting blown out, but at least they fought back and made it interesting, at the end. But yeah, I like this team too. And Mike White probably won't get Coach of the Year votes just based on what Lamont Paris is doing. But if Georgia were to finish with a winning record in the SEC or something, I mean, he'd be right in the conversation probably.
He'd be up there, yeah.
I don't want to get us sidetracked for more than a second or two on how we do power rankings, but I think the way we do them, Blake, is this fair to say we kind of do what's loudest? In other words, sometimes the computers might love a team like Auburn that doesn't have a lot of big wins yet, but we see what the computers say. We watch them play. We know what a good team looks like, even if the results aren't there. And then there's a team like A&M, which, as you pointed out, maybe we're a little too hard on A&M given the resume this week. But when you beat good teams, that also says something. And I don't think it's always the same from week to week, and it's certainly not the same thing across the three of us.
We all have different eyeballs. We're all going to value something a little bit differently. And so, again, and just, boy, this is a great marketing tool here, isn't it? Our power rankings mean nothing. They are meaningless. And so I'm not telling you don't watch. Please watch. We try to entertain you, but they don't mean anything. We're doing these for fun to have a discussion about all these teams. So just keep that in mind. Like, we are not the NCAA tournament committee. We're just 3 guys ranking SEC basketball teams based on our eyeballs and the computers. So don't get
like to overreact. I just like to watch one game and then completely overreact to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. Why wouldn't we do that? So
well,
we're going to talk about an overreaction in a second. Trust me. We're going to get to a team where you guys.
I'm ready. I'm ready
for if you're ready for a pro wrestling promo, I'm going to have one on a certain team here in a few minutes. So
yeah. Well, yeah. We don't always get them right, but we hope that when you hear why we do what we do, you're at least a little bit more of a more highly educated SEC basketball fan. We'll just leave it at that. All right, number 8.
Number 1 in my preseason.
Oh, my. Well, I don't think I would have been too far behind. So, all right, Max, you always get the first word on Ole Miss. A lot of mixed signals with this team. Struggles away from home, struggles to shoot away from home. disconnect between the computers and all the things we've discussed. Not a lot of huge wins, but 2 of the 3 losses are to Tennessee and Auburn on the road where nobody wins. A loss to a sneaky good LSU team. Ole Miss has really found a little bit of a groove and got a big win over Texas A&M over the weekend. And frankly, I think I haven't seen any bracketologies this week, but I think Ole Miss would probably be in most fields as we do this Monday morning.
Yeah, so Ole Miss, I think, so now that we're at this point in the season, I think Ole Miss is one of those teams that you have to watch them play to get a feel for what your opinion on them is, because it's really hard to look at the numbers and draw a conclusion from this team. The one thing that I'm seeing, which I've seen probably in the last 2 games, but really here in this Texas A&M game, is Brandon Murray starting to really play with some confidence. I think that's been a big difference for this team, coming off of an 8-rebound game, where this is a team that has struggled with rebounding. They still got out-rebounded by A&M, but they didn't get dominated. Kind of hung with them on the boards for the whole game. And the blueprint's out on the team. I mean, everyone knows how to beat this team. They have 4 scorers. You have to limit those 4 scorers. And if Brandon Murray can start coming on now, that kind of changes things. It gives them another element. Musa Cisse did roll his ankle in this game. He did come back, but we've seen with the SEC, you never know with injuries. If they don't have Cisse for this Mississippi State game, that changes everything. But yeah, I just think we're seeing a new team with a first-year head coach kind of figure out life in the SEC, trying to win on the road, trying to protect home court. We'll kind of get a mix of both.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talk about teams with their biggest week of the season. It's not just this one for Ole Miss. There's the next 2 weeks. Like this is it for Ole Miss. This is going to define whether they wind up making the NCAA tournament, in my opinion, or the next 2 weeks. Now, of course, if they were to lose out, we know that doesn't help after that. But you understand.
The next 4 games real quick, Blake.
Yeah, home against Mississippi State, home against Auburn, at South Carolina, at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like these are your make or break games right here. Obviously, you need to find a way to split these 2 because if you win the 2 home games, you lose the 2 road games, boom, you're sitting in a much better spot. If you go 3-1, like you're loving life. If you go 4-0, Max is going to rank you number 1 in the power rankings in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is it for Ole Miss, like I said, because after that, you get Missouri twice, which isn't going to do anything for your resume, but there are still opportunities even beyond that. South Carolina at home, Alabama at home. I would say Ole Miss probably has the most opportunistic schedule left of anybody when you start to really go through it. And so that's a good thing for a team that's 17-3. So they've got a little bit of wiggle room here, but they can't just completely, lose 4 in a row or anything, but they are at least close enough to the conversation to where there's not a lot left on their schedule that's going to hurt them that bad. So that is a good spot to be in for the Rebels.
Next up, a team that we all liked. We all look at the parts. I don't think there's any of the 3 of us that think Florida is not an NCAA tournament team. But it's that pesky thing that's hung over Todd Golden for 2 years now. Can Florida beat anybody of significance? Now, look, Florida is still going to have to bank some big wins, but let's look at the last 3 games since Dalton Connect obliterated the Gators on that snowy day in Knoxville. Win at Missouri. I know Missouri struggled, but Florida took care of business against a Missouri team that does not quit. You beat Mississippi State anywhere, anytime. That's a nice win. Florida got one of those this week. And again, we talked about Georgia and how pesky Georgia has become. Florida darn near blew a big lead, but came back and won it in overtime. Opportunities ahead. Boy, if Florida can either get Kentucky or A&M on the road, you got to feel great about that. Maybe the Gators can get Auburn coming up here in a couple of weeks. That one is in Gainesville, where Auburn has struggled on the road. Blake, I think we were pretty pleased with what we saw out of Florida last week.
Good week for the Gators. A much needed good week for the Gators. But there's still a lot of work to be done. They've still got to beat multiple teams of significance, like teams that are surefire NCAA tournament teams. Right now, they've beaten Mississippi State, who would be in, but they're not a surefire NCAA tournament team. Mississippi State loses a couple games in a row, then all of a sudden they probably get into that last 4 in, first 4 out type range. So they're not, they're not a 5 seed. They're not a 7, 6, whatever, like in that sort of comfortable type range. I mean, is there anybody else on their schedule right now that would be a surefire NCAA tournament team that they've beaten?
No.
Pitt's the next best win, probably. That was on a neutral floor, and Pitt's not getting in the tournament today.
So that, again, Florida's on a 3-game winning streak. They've won 4 or 5. But my point is, we're not knocking them. We're just saying they've still got a lot of work to do, like to feel like they are going to make the NCAA tournament and not be going into that final couple weeks of the season thinking, oh boy, But this is, again, where you can make that up this week with 2 road games at Kentucky, at A&M, 2 huge chances to drastically improve your resume. And we saw how well they played against Kentucky last time. We'll preview that game. Then you get Auburn at home the following Saturday, so you get that week off. So schedule, I think, sets up good in terms of like opportunity. Maybe not good having to play these 2 road games, but still. So yeah, great offensive team. Still lack a little bit defensively at times, but I think that the Georgia game kind of throws that out a little bit. But they played pretty well, so give the Gators some credit.
I think that's exactly how you sum this team up. Like, good offensive team, still got stuff to work on defensively. They gave up 30 points to Georgia in the last 10 minutes. You can't let up 30 points in the last 10 minutes. But anytime you got Zion pulling, running your point, I'm going to like your team. So great offense. I like the pieces. It's flashy. They've got great rebounding. They've got an identity to lean on. I just would like the defense to put together a full 40 minutes, and I'm not sure they've really done that yet. And it's going to be tough here going on the road to Kentucky on Wednesday.
All right, number 6, Mississippi State. I think we could argue Mississippi State a spot higher. Probably not 2, but maybe a spot.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, that's why we have a poll.
Not buying it, Chris. I'm not buying it. We're going to get to number 5 in a second. I'm not buying moving this team ahead of number 5.
Well, that's probably why they're stuck at number 6. But let me throw this at you guys. Mississippi State had a really good resume week. It wasn't just beating Auburn, adding to that win over Tennessee, and you could probably argue, let me see. You could argue that no team in the conference, and I think I would, has 2 better resume wins than the Bulldogs, who have, again, beaten the Vols and Auburn. The other thing happening in the background is that Washington State went on a neutral floor is starting to look more meaningful. That's a team that's got a shot to make the NCAAs. And Northwestern, the computers don't love Northwestern, but my goodness, Northwestern is just beating all comers these days. Purdue, Illinois, Dayton, among others. That's one that's going to help. Again, Tolu Smith was not present the first couple of months of the season. We've been over that. Max, you get the floor. You get the floor on the Mississippi teams, I guess, here today. I like where this season is headed, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been night and day on the road compared to home. But like you said, I think this team has the 2 best wins in the conference. They've got, I mean, if you're just looking at KenPom, Tennessee's number 4, Auburn's number 7. They beat both of them. Were they both at home? Yes, but still, they beat them. And they could have beaten Alabama too, and they had a chance at South Carolina. So they really, besides that Kentucky game, they've been right there. And this is a team that's, I wouldn't say they're still learning how to play with Tolu, but those first few games of conference play, you could tell that they were still getting into their comfort zone. I like this team. You picked Cam Matthews in fantasy this past week. He had a phenomenal week. DJ Jeffries is great. How Hubbard's knocking down threes. The only thing is this team's got to start winning on the road. They haven't done that yet. But they might not need to make the tournament. They could just win out at home and be fine. But if they want to do what I know they want to do and move up that seed line, right now they're 32 in KenPom. If they want to move up, they've got to win on the road, and they've got 2 straight road games coming up here this week.
Yes, all that's great. Like they've beaten Tennessee, they've beaten Auburn. It's great. But at some point, we got to reward wins around here, and also knock teams for losses. And, they're 3-4 in the SEC right now. And Chris wanted to move them ahead of the number 5 team in our power rankings this week. Are you kidding me? The South Carolina Gamecocks have cracked the top 5, I think, for the first time this season.
First time
in our power rankings. And all you have to do is go back to the game that was played on January the 6th in Columbia, South Carolina. The place was rocking. And who won that game, Chris? It was the Gamecocks. And so obviously I'm having fun here with this.
I hate to give this man any props because God knows where you could go with that. But sometimes you just got to say a guy's right. And I honestly, that there's been so much distance between that win. It was the opening win in the SEC. I'd forgotten these teams played the head-to-head, but then they did. And South Carolina won.
Mississippi State still has the better group of wins this season.
Yes.
But because I am willing to also put a lot of weight into South Carolina's domination of Kentucky, I think that can sort of bring that up enough to where it can come close to at least, getting to those kind of categories of wins. So, and they did beat them. So that's why I voted South Carolina ahead of Mississippi State this week. Obviously, I'm joking. Everybody knows.
And yet you didn't put South Carolina ahead of Kentucky on your ballot.
Well, no, I didn't. But that's a little bit different.
Oh,
no, hold on a second. No. Hold on.
I laid the cat trap and he fell in it, Max.
Got him.
Oh dear, you're not understanding. I don't think. But that's
I
not
think
what
I
I'm
am.
saying. I
that's
don't
your
think
problem.
that's not what we're saying here at all. If I had to take a team on a neutral court today, all right, I would pick South Carolina over Mississippi State. And so that's one of the reasons why, when comparing those two teams, I did go to the actual matchup, which they won, which, yes, I know Kentucky lost to South Carolina. But I think if you look at it as a whole, I would, look at it from that standpoint and feel pretty good about ranking South Carolina ahead of Mississippi State. So, yeah, I'm just rewarding the Gamecocks here. Okay. So that's all I'm trying to do. You don't like the Gamecocks. You don't like Kentucky. You don't like anybody, Chris.
You don't like Mississippi State.
Hey, Tolu Smith has been.
I think you have something against Bulldogs now that I think about it, because we ranked Georgia ahead of Texas A&M. You had an issue with that, and now you ranked a chicken ahead of a dog.
Yep.
I think we're onto this.
Hey, South Carolina's got a chance to shut us up here, Chris, at Tuesday at Tennessee. No one's been able to go in there and even make it close. So,
all kidding aside, what South Carolina did to Kentucky, if you have not heard us do the reaction video, was very, very impressive. Again, done without Miles Studi. If we're taking an impromptu Coach of the Year vote right now, I mean, we're all going Lamont Paris for Coach of the League, aren't we? I mean, I am. You are. Blake, are you on board with that? If we had to do it today,
decided not to speak for the rest of this video.
we've hurt this man's feelings.
I don't think anyone has made us look like more of a fool than Lamont Paris has this year.
He is our daddy.
Yeah, he's crushed us.
He's
crushed us.
And no, they're having a great season. Right now, I think you got 6 teams that would be in the field safely today. I think A&M would be in there, and I think Ole Miss would be in there. So probably 6 in for sure, and 8 that I think would. My guess is you'd have 8 in. I know this isn't bracketology, but fair.
Yeah, I think they're in.
Okay.
I think they got to be in.
Moving along. I thought it was a Southeastern 14 bylaw that we kept the same team at number 4 every week. Lo and behold, we got a change at number 4. Blake Lovell, who's our number 4?
Well, let me just ask, did you put South Carolina ahead of Kentucky in your power rankings?
No.
Oh, really? Wow. You just called me out on it, but you're not going to call yourself out on it. Okay. Again, yes, Kentucky is our number 4 team. They've slid down to this spot, which means the regular number 4 team has moved up. Look, I already know, right? South Carolina, Kentucky both got the same record in the SEC. One just completely dominated the other. So we're going to have to justify this one too. But I mean, Kentucky sliding down against is understandable because they were dominated at South Carolina. But I think the fact that Kentucky found a way to win the game at Arkansas, I know Arkansas is 13 in our power rankings. We just decided, hey, that was still enough to kind of keep them a spot ahead because they had been kind of a top 3 lock for a while there. And so, yeah, I guess it wasn't enough to kind of make, because South Carolina moved up how many spots this week? Moved up 2 spots, maybe 1 or 2.
2.
So Kentucky drops 1. Yeah. So again, this is all, these are never going to be perfect. You're always going to have spots like this where it's like, what do you do? All right. But Kentucky getting that win at Arkansas, we talked about in the reaction video. It wasn't pretty. You knew it wasn't going to be pretty, but they won the game. And that's kind of the bounce back you wanted to see from them after just, again, not looking anywhere near the level of play that they should be playing at South Carolina. So, yeah, Kentucky drops to 4, but still, we'll see if that just getting that road win sort of lets them exhale a little bit, entering one of their biggest weeks of the season too, with Florida and then the huge showdown with Tennessee on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just last week, could probably argue pretty strongly to put South Carolina ahead, but you got to remember, this is still the same Kentucky team that blew out Mississippi State, blew out Georgia, beat Florida at Florida, and this is the same South Carolina team that got blown out by 30 at Alabama, took Missouri to overtime, lost to Georgia at home. So it's like,
and Kentucky still has the North Carolina win. We can't just ignore that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they still beat North Carolina a month ago, so we just can't ignore it completely. So,
and they didn't have Rob Dillingham at Arkansas. You could tell that affected them. It was the first game back with a Duthie arrow. I don't know when the last time this Kentucky team is just like played with their normal team. It feels like every game, at least, they're introducing a new guy or they're missing a guy. I'm usually the overreactor, and I'm not overreacting here. I still think Kentucky's fine. I think they grew up, especially. I think Reed Shepherd really had a nice bounce back in that second half and responded very well to the toughness. So, yeah, I still like Kentucky a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of what you said. The parts on this team and the roles are just shifting a lot right now.
Yeah.
As John Calipari tries to figure out what he's got. I mean, he kind of had something, then you throw Big Z in there, and he has the best 10 minutes, of any player in college basketball this year, and then nothing since. You had Reed Shepherd basically invisible for about 3 halves of basketball, comes out second half of that game Saturday, plays more like Reed Shepherd. You have the big guys and the injuries. You have, what are we going to do with Justin Edwards, who took a seat for most of the game? I mean, I think I said on Kentucky, I'm not going to start judging this team till mid-February. That might be 2 weeks premature. As we said, all the parts are there. I just don't know how they fit together. And this might be a case where, as much as he's been criticized for it in the moment, and we've done some of that, you may be best to take a loss here or two in February and January that you could have won to see what you got. I think that's probably what's going on. So Kentucky at 4, but the number next to Kentucky in any ranking right now is almost completely irrelevant. Anyway, number 3, Auburn. Same story for Auburn. We love the talent. Janai Broome is just all right. Have at it, Blake.
Okay, folks, let's have a conversation here about the Auburn Tigers. All right, I've been waiting on this one. Auburn lost at Alabama, their fierce rival. The rivalry between the Tide and the Tigers. Long-standing rivalry throughout history. There is none that has rivaled it. This rivalry, it has not been rivaled. You understand that? On the road in a building where the lights go out to start the game. Not a good sign for the Auburn Tigers. So you're off to a bad start there. They lose by 4. Just it happens sometimes, right? Then you go to Mississippi State. Tough bounce back spot after a road rivalry game, one of the biggest
Auburn won that
rivalries
game,
in
right?
history. What's that?
Auburn won that game, right?
Oh, here we go. Listen, jabroni. You'll get a chance to speak here in a minute. We'll let the Rock talk for a second, okay? They go to Mississippi State on Saturday. They play in Starkville, the dump at the hump, as it's now been called by the one and only Donovan in our reaction show. They lose by 6. They only score 58 points, which is a little bit concerning, I suppose. But when you also factor in they only gave up 64, that's not too bad for a team that ranks in the top 5 in the country in defensive efficiency. And boy, you guys know, I weigh that offensive efficiency nowhere near as important as that defensive efficiency. I'm all in on the defensive efficiency numbers. I don't care about teams that play offense. I want the teams that play defense, like Auburn and Kentucky. And so, when you look at it now from this standpoint, they have lost a road game to their biggest rival by 4 points. They've lost a road game at the hump by 6 points. A combined 2 losses in a week with a combined 10 points as the decider there, which is an average of a 5-point loss on the road in SEC play, where approximately 32 of the 48 SEC games have been won by home teams. That's 66.7%. That's 7th in the country among all conferences in home winning percentage in conference play. So, does Auburn have a maybe identifiable weakness at this point? Yes, we're starting to see it. It's the 3-point shooting. They got to shoot the ball better because that number keeps going down after this recent performance where they go 5 of 25 and 6 of 24. That's not going to get it done because teams now know that they're struggling to shoot the 3. Bruce Pearl knows they're struggling to shoot the 3. He wants them probably not to shoot as many 3s. However, let's all just take a deep breath and understand that this is SEC basketball play. They played 2 games on the road where they had a chance to win both. They didn't get blown out. They had opportunities to win the game in each of them. We cannot ignore that this team has 16 wins on the season, all by double digits. I don't care if they played whoever, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech, us 3, with our hands tied behind our back. The Auburn Tigers, we cannot ignore the domination because there's no other team that's dominated the way that Auburn has in those games specifically. So, Auburn fans, it's going to be okay. Like, everything is all right for right now. If they lose at home to Vanderbilt on Wednesday, we can all clip this and everybody can have fun with it. But you only lost 2 games on the road by a combined 10 points to 2 NCAA tournament teams, one of which is a top 4 seed. It's all right. The quad 1 win opportunities, there may not be a ton left on the schedule, but you got plenty of opportunities to keep yourself in a great position for the NCAA tournament. You're not going to miss the NCAA tournament after losing 2 road games by a combined 10 points to 2 NCAA tournament teams. You're 16-4. You're 5-2 in the SEC. You need to win some road games at some point, but it's okay right now. Still a good team. Still one of the most balanced teams out there. Still one of the deepest teams out there. They still got the broom. Everything's okay, Auburn fans.
Chris, you look like you are dying to comment on
If
that.
you smell
What
the
2
rock
things.
is cooking.
I had to make sure the blood was still flowing after all that. Number 2, I might need a Dramamine after that dizzying ride that Blake Lovell took us on there, Max.
One second, guys. My roommate just started the vacuum.
goes with the broom conversation. So
It does.
It's good timing.
Should we just move along to number 2?
Oh my gosh, just goes very well with the broom. So
Brooms and vacuums.
Sorry.
oh gosh.
I just hear this.
No. That was Janai Broom coming through.
All right.
That was.
I'll mark that down. Jeez. What is this video?
All right.
Speaking of cleaning up shop, listen, Blake. Yes, the team has won 16 by double digits. But if you watch those games against Alabama, against Mississippi State, the issues I don't think are going to be fixed anytime soon. It's the guard play in crunch time situations. They don't have that guard dude where you got to go one-on-one and the team's playing the hardest defense of their life and you got to get a bucket and Janai Broom's in foul trouble. The team looks lost. And look at these road games. They got to go to Ole Miss, to Florida, to Tennessee still. I mean, they're going to have to pick up a road win here. I mean, they don't have to, but the fan base is probably going to lose their minds if they don't here pretty soon. So while, yes, I agree, it's not the end of the world. They lost to two very good teams. I think two things can be true at once. And yes, it's not the end of the world after those two losses, but also, yes, I think there's some glaring issues with the guards in crunch time. I'll say that.
Listen, they're number 9 in the net, and that's all I care about.
Take your net and throw it.
I love the net. The net may be the greatest tool ever invented. They're still number 9 in the net. So, and I didn't say I wouldn't call them out on their issues if they lose a couple more games, but just for right now, I'm leaning in on the fact that I don't think Auburn should be hitting the panic button. That's all
Yes.
I'll say.
Okay. Yes. I'll agree.
This is setting up so well. We now turn it over to Auburn's number 1 fan, Blake Lovell, to introduce our number 2 team in the countdown.
Well, what do you know? There's a team out there that everybody was doubting. Boy, I got back-to-back promos for Auburn and Alabama here. Could not set up any better for me. But remember when the Alabama Crimson Tide were sitting there at 6-5 on the season, and everybody's looking around saying, "What on earth is this basketball team? Are they here to play basketball, or are they not?" Well, it turns out they're here to play basketball, because since then, what have they done? They've won every game except for one, which they went to Tennessee, and I can't come up with the same rhyme that Donovan used for the Auburn game at Mississippi State, but I'm sure there's one you could come up with there. Because I don't remember what the Tennessee Arena is called anymore. It's not Thompson Bowling. It's the Food Nuggets, Chicken Nuggets, Food Lion Center, whatever it's called.
Food City.
Food City. Yeah. Well, come up with your own rhyme for what Alabama did there in that arena. But Alabama, here they are for the first time this season into the top 2. And the Crimson Tide now, by themselves, sit alone at the top of the SEC standings. So my bold predictions of Alabama winning the SEC and South Carolina making the NCAA tournament. Now, remember, that's after I picked South Carolina to finish 14th in the league in the preseason. They're both starting to look pretty good right now. But Alabama, again, it's just offensively, they have another gear that we just do not see in the SEC right now. And I think that just continues to be the story. And we've said it. They're just aggressive. They are relentless on the offensive end of the floor. But we've also got to give them their props. They are playing much better defensively. You can point at the 88 they gave to LSU all you want. You look at how they're winning some of these games, whether it's the Auburn game, a couple other games, like they're able to make some defensive plays, and it's not just let the other team score and then go shoot a 3 and score one more point than they do. Like they are getting better on the defensive end. They are doing their thing offensively. Could they still have another stinker out there in them? Maybe it's at Georgia on Wednesday. Maybe it's at Auburn the following Wednesday. Sure, they're going to lose some games along the way. But I think you got to give Alabama a lot of credit for not hitting the panic button after they went 6-5, understanding that those games were going to get them better. And they did. They've learned from those games that they lost in non-conference play, and you're seeing the reward of that and how it has benefited them so far in SEC play. So the Tide up to number 2.
Chris, you look like you're chomping at the bit.
I feel like I'm watching basketball polygamy here.
What's going on here?
I don't know.
Oh, I got something for Tennessee too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I really like this. I really like this Alabama team, and I was probably so down. I was probably more down on them than anyone to start the season. I didn't like the defense at all. I didn't like the rebounding. But man, got to give your credit to Grant Nelson. I mean, he might not be shooting the ball from outside that well, but I don't think he needs to. I don't think this team needs him to shoot the ball outside that well. I think they need him to be aggressive, get to the free throw line, rebound the ball, and protect the rim. And he has done that at a very high level past few weeks. So you got to give Grant Nelson some credit, but also Latrell Wrightsell is acting like he's Buddy Hield out here, making 3 threes in almost every SEC game. He's been on fire. And to bring that off the bench, man, him and Rylan Griffin and kind of just trading who's coming off the bench. Rylan Griffin with 5 threes against Auburn. It's not many teams have that where you can have multiple guys go off for 5 threes and they might be coming off the bench in that game. So will they have a few more games this season where they go 4 for 20 from 3 and probably lose the game because they're not making shots? Yeah, probably. But I'm not going to overreact when they do that because I know that they can put up 109 on any given night. So, man, when the offense is clicking, team's pretty much unbeatable.
Number 1, the Tennessee Volunteers. And I think this one was pretty clear this week. We've talked about 3 or 4 teams competing for one. Tennessee's got the right mix of just looks impressive, his banked big wins, and oh, by the way, it's got Dalton Connect, who is just playing basketball in some sort of alternate universe, Max.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's just Dalton Connect can. What did we call him one time? The Fighting Dalton Connects. I think, and to have a team where you have Jonas Adu, Zakai Ziegler, Vescovy, Josiah Jordan-James, all these other guys, and we only talk about, not only, but Dalton Connect's been that good that these other guys are being forgotten. I haven't seen offensive performances like this from an individual in a few years. And I mean, look at that. The reason why they're up here, that Georgia game. Okay, they lose that Georgia game. Dalton Connect doesn't go off. They're not number 1 in our power rankings right now. But Dalton Connect did his Connect things, and now you can kind of rely on that. I mean, look at their upcoming schedule. They have at Kentucky on Saturday. That is going to be an amazing game, but also you almost just know Connect's going for 30. Like, when's the last time that we've had a player where it's like he has a bad game if he doesn't get 30 points? Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the Food City Center in Knoxville, Tennessee has not seen a player like Dalton Connect in quite some time. And I just want to say, Tennessee, I never doubted you. I never doubted that you should be number 1 in the power rankings. I've kept you at number 1 every single week this season. I never doubted you at all. I never thought that you should be put behind Auburn, Kentucky, any other of those teams. I should have known. But when we went into the season saying, hey, Tennessee's the best team in the league, I should have known to never move you around. I apologize to Tennessee and all the Food City Center patrons because, again, we should have just kept Tennessee here knowing that this was all going to even out. The Vols are just tremendous. They are a tremendous basketball team. And, in all seriousness, they have all the tools now. Like, it's funny because there's not as many people, but you still see people out there trying to pick Tennessee apart and say, well, just wait till March and all this other stuff. But the fact is, if you're watching this Tennessee team and you don't see the difference, they're still one of the best defensive teams in the country, as they've been for years now. But they have a player that you do not see come along in college basketball very often. And when you combine that together with their experience, with everything that they have, Max, I know we've got to wrap this up quickly here, but I don't know where Tennessee ranks in the Bet Online national championship odds right now, but I am willing to bet they are behind teams that they should not be behind. And it's probably the Rick Barnes thing in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, I'm willing to throw a wager on the Vols right now because I think that, again, they have all the tools. They have the dude. They have the experience. They have the defense. They have everything you need to win a national championship. And we'll see what happens, what the bracket looks like, all that stuff. But yes, Tennessee rightfully at the top of our power
Right
rankings.
now, they're number 6 in the odds
That was higher than I thought they may be. So,
They're
okay.
plus 1,200.
I assume UConn, Houston, Purdue, Arizona.
Nope,
North
it's
Carolina.
Kentucky and UNC.
Ooh,
Are ahead of
Kentucky.
them.
Okay.
wow.
I'm not surprised, but
Yeah, they're plus 1,200 right now, and yours truly has them at plus 3,300.
ooh.
So,
Yeah. Well,
rooting for the Vols to win it all.
there you go.
Here's the thing. Everybody's talking about Dalton Connect. Do you guys remember who Tennessee's lone representative on the preseason All-SEC team was?
It was either Vescovy or Ziegler.
It was Vescovy. Ziegler was second team, and I bet you Josiah Jordan James got consideration for second, even though he didn't make it. Here's my point. You don't hear Vescovy mentioned almost at all. You don't hear Josiah Jordan James, who's been in a scoring funk, mentioned much at all. Point being, I'm not dogging on those two guys. I'm saying they got those two dudes in reserve. They had to play leading roles in the past.
Oreo is all in on the Vols.
And we know
He's
how
all
that
in.
went in the NCAA tournament. You can
He's
hear
ready
it
to go to Food
Oreo
City Center right now.
in my
and eat.
backdrop.
That is what
Boy.
Oreo's ready for.
Dalton Connect is that ingredient that Tennessee has been missing. And my point is they've got other guys that are supporting casts that have been relegated to lower roles, which probably fits where those guys were anyway. This team is loaded. It's got a go-to scorer. It's got a lockdown defense. I'm with you guys. I forget all the regular season Rick stuff. I think this team is legit and could be making a further run than we've seen Tennessee make before.
Not
All right.
to mention they bring Awaka, Gainey, Meshack, all off the bench.
Gainey was a lead dog at USC Upstate, so they got other guys that are used.
Lead dog. Well, that's a good term to use right now. All right, we got to wrap this up.
We got to wrap.
He's got to go to Food City Center. He's ready to be there for the Dalton connection.
We need dog food, apparently. All right. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope your ears are intact after the last minute of this video. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. This is Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.